Today on Law Next, if you follow legal tech at all, you would be justified in suspecting that Tom Martin has figured out how to use artificial intelligence to clone himself. While running LawDroid, his legal tech company, the Vancouver-based Martin also still manages a law practice in California, oversees an annual legal tech awards program, teaches a law school course on generative AI, runs an annual AI conference, hosts a podcast, and recently launched a legal tech consultancy. In January 2023, less than 2 months after ChatGPT first came to market, Martin's company was one of the first to launch a Gen AI assistant specifically for lawyers called LawDroid Copilot. He since also launched LawDroid Builder, a no-code platform for creating custom AI agents. Beyond his work at LawDroid, Martin is an adjunct professor at Suffolk Law School in Boston, teaching generative AI and the delivery of legal services, and is a co-founder of the American Legal Technology Awards, which will be holding its 6th annual ceremony this October in Boston. In today's conversation, we'll discuss his journey from practicing lawyer to legal tech founder, his perspective on how Gen AI is transforming the legal profession, and his insights on implementing AI in law firms and legal aid organizations. I'm Bob Ambrogi, and this is Law Next, the podcast that features the innovators and entrepreneurs who are driving what's next in law. Before we get to that, please take a moment to hear from the sponsors whose generosity supports this podcast. Transform your immigration practice with LawLaw, the comprehensive case management system designed specifically for immigration attorneys. Access over 125 USCIS, DOJ, and EOIR forms, all updated within an hour of release, while automating your workflow with more than 40 predefined customizable processes. With multilingual client portals and questionnaires available in over 20 languages, you'll streamline client communication and enhance efficiency. Discover why LawLaw is the #1 rated immigration case management software by visiting lawlylaw.com. That's LOLLYLAW.com. You didn't go to law school to waste time writing and responding to discovery requests. Never waste time on discovery again with BriefPoint. BriefPoint drafts your discovery responses and requests for documents within minutes of your first sign-in. BriefPoint is the most reliable discovery drafting solution on the market, and it works right out of the box. Get your first document drafted by going to briefpoint.ai and clicking Get Started. No credit card required. BriefPoint. Draft what matters, automate the rest. Now let's get to today's conversation. Tom, welcome to Law Next.
Hey, Bob. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to speaking to you, and good to see you. You know, I've known you for a number of years and known of LawDroid, your company, but actually have no idea how you got into that. I know that you were a lawyer and you got interested in tech, but let's start there. I mean, how did you go from practicing law to building tech?
Well, it's a long question, even longer answer, but I'll try to condense it.
We've only got an hour here, so we can.
Yeah. I'll try to condense it. Basically, I've been in love with tech my whole life. Grew up sparked by the Apple II when I was a kid, and then have just made it part of my life. So it was very natural for me to transition into focusing on tech, on AI, on chatbots. Specifically, though, I had experimented with it in my practice, and we actually had an early involvement with LegalZoom, where they were working with us as a marketing partner, and we used technology to automate some of our service provision doing that. But it was really an article that I read about Joshua Browder, helping people to get out of parking tickets in London when he was like 16 or 17 or something, and just really sparked my interest in automating, information through chatbots and AI, and it was just love at first sight.
Joshua's been on this show twice. Once when he wasn't much older than 16 or 17 or whatever it was. It was amazing what a start. And then another time under not so great circumstances when he was coming under attack from some corners of the legal community. But definitely an inspiration to a lot of people. You still practice law, right?
I do. My law firm is called Foresight Legal Group, and it's based out of California, where I'm originally from and licensed. And it's been a remote practice for close to 14 years now, and focuses primarily on probate law. And so because of that, it's fairly like paperwork driven, and I have 3 attorneys working for me. So I just consult on strategy and, financial decisions, but it allows me and frees me up to primarily devote my attention to LawDroid, which is my first love.
Yeah. So how did you end up in Vancouver?
Yeah. So my wife is originally from North Vancouver, where I'm sitting right now. And, when we got married back in 1998, she spent 15 years, raising our family, our 2 daughters in Long Beach, California. And then after my mom passed away in 2012, our ties to LA were such that it felt like our center of universe moved to her mom,
Mm-hmm.
in Vancouver. So then
Mm-hmm.
we moved up here, and it was a great choice, great place to raise kids. Especially, I think I told you earlier today, it's finally hit spring and the flowers are blooming, and it's just devastatingly beautiful in Vancouver when it's not raining.
Yeah, yeah. Vancouver is a really beautiful place. I've been lucky. I mean, I haven't been there all that many times, but I've always hit good weather when I've been there. So I don't know how I've knock on wood on that one, I guess. How did you kind of ultimately make that leap? I mean, you were interested in technology. You started to develop some of the applications that led to LawDroid. But what was the point at which you said, I'm really going to dive into this and go all in on starting a company?
Yeah, so this year will be the 9th year since I started LawDroid. It started as an experiment with a chatbot to help people incorporate their businesses in California, which, by the way, back then was still paper-based. But I think for me, and I think the experience for some entrepreneurs is it wasn't an experience of all in, bet the farm, it was more incremental. It was like
Mm-hmm.
testing the waters, seeing how things went. People responded really positively to that first experiment. Then I got some work with legal aid organizations. That's a natural marriage, helping them to scale their services. And also at the same time, learning a ton about automation, rolling in early AI models like a BERT model to understand what people are saying using natural language. And then when Gen AI really took off with ChatGPT in November 2022, adding that layer to the mix and making what we do even more robust and powerful.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really been, a learning curve like we're all on right now.
Mm-hmm.
And just getting deeper and deeper into it as it's just proven itself as a very worthy area of growth.
Yeah. So what's been as you've been going along this learning curve? What's been the hardest lesson to learn, or what you least expected about getting a business going like this?
Let's see, the thing that I least expected, I mean, we all have great hopes, I think, when we start any venture. I didn't think it would take 7 to 8 years for for it to catch on, or people to catch up with where my head had been for a
Mm-hmm.
while. Really happy to see that it has come to where everyone's kind of talking about this stuff and interested in it. I understand, believe me, that for a lot of people it's too much at this point, and it's like, why are we talking about this all the time? And I get that, but it makes it much easier to have a conversation about using this technology to make our lives easier than it certainly was, let's say, 5 years ago.
Well, even setting aside generative AI, these 7 or 8 years or so have been really pivotal years in the legal profession, right? I'm sure you'd agree with that. I mean, the fact that it's taken people this much time to come around to what you've already been thinking about is really reflective of the times we're in right now, right?
Yeah, I mean, so COVID was a huge moment,
Right.
or years for all of us, that really forced us out of the mentality of this is the way it's always been. Um, and yeah, I mean, there was a tremendous amount of change in that short period of time because necessity is the mother of invention, and we had to all change our vibe and our way of approaching work to fit. And I think that really opened the consciousness, opened the door. One thing though, even though I've been thinking about this for a while, Richard Susskind, like he's been
Yeah.
working on this forever. and
Yeah.
has truly been lighting the way for all of us. So there's definitely lots of great innovators out there like yourself who've been spreading the word about this.
Yeah. Yeah. No, Susskind is a visionary in terms of seeing what was coming down the road. But, it has dramatically evolved. And I keep using this Venn diagram analogy of the fact that when I was a younger lawyer, law practice was over here, and technology, to the extent there was technology, was kind of over here, and there was very little overlap, and you could very competently and very capably practice law without ever giving a second thought to technology, right? And then slowly over the years, there started to be more and more overlap, but then when the pandemic came, it was suddenly like there was no more two separate circles. They're just, you need technology in order to practice law.
I really love that point. I think you posted on LinkedIn first about that concept, and
Yeah, I've talked about it.
yeah, it really it really connected with me. I think the way you
Yeah,
described it is perfect. Because you're right, it's a complete overlap right now, and it should really be no surprise, right? Because they're large language models. they're
right.
they're experts at understanding our intent, at not only predicting the next word, which people talk about that, but it's also thinking through an understanding within a world of meaning that maps over how we approach it as lawyers. And we can also train it in ways to think like a lawyer. So, it's a great boon for our industry, I think, and we should really lean into it and not be afraid of it.
Yeah. Well, we can give Richard Susskind credit for being a visionary, but I'm going to give you some credit for being somewhat of a visionary around generative AI, because as I look back on that time post 2022, toward the end of 2022, early 23, when people were starting to talk about ChatGPT, and people were talking a little bit about co-counsel and what they were doing. You were one of the first people to really be putting a lot of attention on this, I think, or at least to be kind of vocal about it. What got you so interested? I mean, what did you see as the potential of generative AI that was kind of different than what you'd been doing already up to that point with LawDroid?
Yeah, I mean, the difference was that it was able to talk back. Up until that point, actually, I think it was 2016, I put together a bot that was using natural language understanding to basically understand the question you're asking, and then give you an answer. But it was pretty much conditional logic behind the scenes. So this really opened the door to have a much more human, fluid conversation, and yeah, just made it so much easier to converse with. But I do have to say that I wasn't an expert at the beginning in terms
Yeah.
of generative AI. I dealt with other things, and certainly there's a learning curve for everyone. And I
Yeah.
know that some people have had difficulty in coming to terms with how generative AI is different and what its limitations are. And I certainly experienced that. It wasn't perfect. I definitely learned lessons early on about how to use it. But
I mean, it's been
yeah,
a steep learning curve for everybody, but we've all been learning a lot over the last 2 years. It actually occurs to me that at this point in this conversation, there are probably some people listening right now who saying to themselves, "What the hell is LawDroid, and what does it do, and what does generative AI have to do with what it does?" So maybe we should back up a little bit, because I don't think I ever asked you that. But why don't you talk a little bit about what LawDroid is, and then maybe talk about how generative AI has helped bring the product to a different level or a different stage.
happy to. So a thumbnail sketch is that LawDroid is a company that helps lawyers work smarter, not harder. There's two products. One is called Copilot, which everyone is familiar with now, that helps lawyers to do their jobs. My bet on that was most lawyers, they don't want to get up to speed or have the time to spend learning prompt engineering. So we curated all of those choices, and basically made it simple buttons that they choose to summarize or create counter arguments and things like that. It's a more simplified version of ChatGPT that's secure and private for lawyers' use. The other one is called LawDroid Builder, and you can actually build custom AI agents with that platform. And in fact, we use that platform to build LawDroid Copilot. So it's very comprehensive, but it's no code, easy to use. We even have templates where you can build up like a phone assistant to answer your phones for you, one for your website to capture leads, one that can interview clients and actually create documents for you. So it's an extremely robust platform. And along the way, there's really been a consulting part of it because I work on projects with legal aid organizations, state courts, state bar associations, and of course, lawyers and law firms. But you have to get them up to speed on how this stuff works. And so consulting with them along the way has always been a part of that. And I just recently gave that a name, which is Deep Legal Consulting, which accompanies our software services that we provide with LawDroid.
Is that deep legal consulting more focused on that legal aid sector, or is it the legal sector in general more broadly?
It's focused on the legal sector broadly. And I've been already consulting with some people that have more, corporate legal roles. And it's been fascinating because a lot of the lessons learned that I have over the years in more of the, A to J space, they apply with equal measure to, the space in corporate and big law. It's just that it hasn't been applied there as much until now.
Yeah. So are you consulting on building, implementation, design, strategy, kind of whatever?
Yeah, there's the whole. There's a lot going on. There's buy versus build. There's people like reinventing the wheel all the time. Yeah. I'm a big advocate of not doing that. You see sometimes when law firms spin up their own, custom build, that they miss a lot of things. When you work with a legal AI vendor, we've been through all of these lessons many, many times over with many different clients. So it's easier to leverage that experience. But basically, it's me talking like this, giving them the feedback that I've learned from the years of working with AI and pointing them in the right direction, saving them a lot of time, effort, and worry.
Yeah. A subject I've been thinking a lot about since Legal Week, and I've probably also written about this on LinkedIn a little bit, but is the question of how a law firm or legal organization should be thinking about approaching AI solutions built for legal at this point. And what I mean by that is you've got a companies such as yours that are in some ways kind of more targeted platforms in a sense, but they can also help build out agents and that sort of thing. You've got some of the big companies that are kind of building in soup to nuts AI as part of their platform. You want to do chronologies, you want to do summarization, you want to do document generation, we'll do it all for you. You've got law firms talking about whether to build it themselves, trying to create their own solutions for some of the issues, some of the workflows that they have within their firm. I feel like if I was a head of innovation at a law firm right now, or maybe more to the point, if I was at a smaller firm that doesn't have a head of innovation, I'd be a little confused on which way to go right now in trying to get AI into my firm, what kind of products I should be looking at, what direction I should be going in, whether to build it myself. What do you tell firms about that?
Absolutely. And this was the subject of a paper that I wrote for the National Law Review. So one of my pet peeves is when vendors talk about use cases, right? They talk about what you're going to do kind of like in the abstract. It's not really tied to what value it's creating for your firm. And I think that comes first. The experimentation is great. It opens people's minds. But in terms of actually like landing and expanding some concept within a law firm or larger business, is you really have to think of a concrete problem that you're solving that creates value for the organization. And so focusing on the why first is extremely important. In fact, I'm working on a book about this. But
busy man.
Yeah. There's no time like the present. Yeah. But that's an extremely important challenge that everyone has. And I think because of our excitement, because of AI being in the air every single day, we've kind of been experimenting a lot, but being able to distill that down to actual valuable projects that would benefit us in the organization is the number one first step you want to do. And so I help people to distill that.
Looking at your website before we talked, and I saw an interview with you recently where you talked about the sort of distinction between AI as a co-pilot versus AI as an oracle. Is that kind of what you're talking about here?
Somewhat. It's related. To me, mindset is strangely more important than a lot of like the tactics. And mindset comes even before strategy. It really just sets your mind in a framework of like looking at things the right way. And so
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people have made the mistake of like looking at AI as an oracle, something magical. That's
Mm-hmm.
why the Schwartz case happened,
Yeah.
because that was the mindset,
Right.
right? It wouldn't have happened if that wasn't the mindset. If the mindset was, it's a helpful assistant, assistants make mistakes, we need to look at this, then that wouldn't have happened. So but the mindset here, for working with AI and actually implementing it within a law firm, within some larger company, is really like what value can we create for ourselves using this technology? And that's what it's always been. But
Mm-hmm.
I think we've been so caught up with, I don't want to call it hype, but excitement about this technology, that we try to use it for everything.
And that, well, I guess that oracle concept relates there only in the sense that I think some law firms think about this as some sort of a magic box where they're not quite actually thinking about that value proposition that you're referring to. They're just kind of thinking about, if we get this, it's going to do good things for us somehow, without fully thinking through what those good things might look like or what it might mean or why it really matters to their clients or their firm.
Yeah, there's a concept that I've taught my students at Suffolk Law. I've called it Moravec's irony because there's this Moravec's paradox. I probably could name it Martin's irony, but basically what it has to do with is that it's a strange thing that I've learned about lawyers, including myself included, that if they're using AI and it doesn't do everything magically, they're upset about that. They feel like let down by the AI. Yet at the same time, a lot of lawyers complain about AI taking their jobs.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So the fact the fact that they complain that it's not yet taking their jobs is the ironic part.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah.
Well, so let's set aside all the hype around AI and talk about what the reality is. I mean, what's your belief about how significant a technology this is for the future of law, and what kind of an impact it's going to have on law practice?
Yeah, I mean, again, just to cite back to Susskind, he like anticipated a lot of different like differentiation in terms of job roles for lawyers, and that the artisanal unitary view of the lawyer is going to decentralize, and I think that's a good thing because a lot of us have different strengths, and
Mm-hmm.
so we could each play to our own strength in pursuing a different type of job skill within legal. But I also think that the part about the billable hour, yes, that's definitely going to have an impact. And the thing is that lawyers, I think traditionally we've been very reactive. Somebody comes to us with a fire, we got to put out the fire.
Yep.
And what this technology opens up for all of us is the ability to become much more proactive and I think deeply involved in clients' business from day to day. Because a lot of the stuff, you could potentially run legal analysis in real time based upon real time feedback that you're getting from an organization. And then, yes, you may lose a little bit on the billable hours for reactive work, but if you could go extremely deeply into a company's day-to-day operations on a proactive side, you
Mm-hmm.
could not only offset, but probably expand the book of business that you have.
Yeah, that's interesting. There's actually a product, I forget if it's already been announced or being announced next week, that sort of does that. It does it more on a threat analysis basis, but providing law firms with kind of real time threat analysis that would be impactful on clients and industries that they represent, which I thought was an interesting use of generative AI.
That's great. I actually wrote an article for the National Law Review 2 months ago about that very example.
They might have stolen your idea. We'll find out. It sounds like what you're saying is that your thinking about generative AI is that it's not going to fundamentally displace lawyers. It's going to be able to make lawyers more efficient on one level, more effective on another level, and perhaps kind of change their posture in to being more defensive rather than offensive.
Well, I would say like maybe more proactive than just reactive.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't want to paint too rosy a picture. I mean, clearly, I need I want to be transparent with everyone that in the short term, there's going to be a lot of change where, when it gets changed from this one view of what a lawyer is to a lawyer being many different things or different types of legal positions available, that there's going to be a period of transition where we're all getting up to speed. I've talked to some lawyers where they're like, I'm 5 years out from retirement, so I'm glad I don't have to deal with this. But it's certainly going to be a trend where there's going to be some growing pains. But I think once we get beyond that, it's going to be a much fuller, richer experience than it has been.
Yeah, I mean, one of the common points of discussion over the last couple of years has been which legal jobs will get eliminated and how soon will they get eliminated. Do you think this will, in fact, replace certain legal jobs, or is that just part of the hype?
Well, it's certainly part of the hype. I'm sure vendors use that to try to push on, that fear button to get people on board, and that's not right. But it's also true that our job as it's currently defined is going to change. Like the job skill definitions are going to change. There's going to be different points of emphasis for what we do as lawyers, for different positions within legal, and so that I think, as lawyers are currently defined, yeah, that's probably going to go away. But there's going to be many more opportunities.
Yeah. As you've heard, Tom Martin's career has taken him from practicing attorney to legal tech founder to teacher and advisor on generative AI and its impact on the legal profession. In a moment, we'll explore how Gen AI can help address the access to justice gap in America, and Tom will share details about the upcoming American Legal Technology Awards, which he co-founded. We'll also learn about his work teaching the next generation of lawyers about AI at Suffolk Law School. But first, please take this opportunity to learn about the sponsors who so generously support this podcast. Immigration attorneys, are you ready to modernize your firm's billing process with LawDroid? Create invoices in seconds, offer flexible payment plans, and accept payments via SMS, QR codes, and client portals available in over 20 languages. LawDroid's native payment processing helps you maintain steady cash flow while giving clients the flexibility they need. Combined with real-time form updates and comprehensive case tracking, LawDroid eliminates the obstacles slowing down your immigration practice. Experience the difference at LawDroid.com. That's LOLLYLAW.com. In an ever-evolving legal market, there's one thing that stands the test of time: great client service. That's where Lex Reception comes in. Their agents are available 24/7, 365 days a year to answer calls, qualified leads, onboard new clients, and schedule appointments. With bilingual agents and software that can seamlessly integrate with your current workflow, you'll never miss a call or future case. With over 12 years of experience, Lex Reception gives lawyers the time and freedom to focus on core legal work and helps them grow their firms, all while building their reputation for great client service. Check them out today at lexreception.com. Voice recognition is great for quick texts or emails, but when accuracy matters, AI guesses. As you well know, in law, guessing isn't an option. With SpeakRight, real human transcriptionists deliver accurate, professionally formatted legal documents in about 3 hours, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The free mobile app provides instant access to trained legal secretaries, plus Clio integration for seamless filing. It's like carrying a full support staff on your phone. LawNext listeners, claim your $100 free credit right now at speakright.com/LawNext. Welcome back to LawNext, where I'm speaking with Tom Martin, founder and CEO of LawDroid. Before the break, we were talking about how Gen AI is changing the landscape of legal practice and the mindset shifts required among legal professionals for effective implementation. Now, we turn the conversation to a topic that's important to both of us: access to justice. Tom has worked extensively with legal aid organizations and courts to leverage AI technology in making legal services more accessible. Let's get back to the conversation for Tom's perspective on how Gen AI can help bridge the justice gap in this country. Turn for a second just to the access to justice issue. As you've already said, you've done a lot of work with legal aid organizations over the years. I know that you and I run into each other at various conferences focused on organizations that are trying to use technology to address access to justice. To what extent do you think generative AI can make a difference in the justice gap in this country? And if you think it can, what does that look like? How can it do that?
Well, I definitely think it can. And it was great to see you at the Innovations Technology Conference in January, and just ran into you again at the Lit Conference in Boston at Suffolk. But I definitely think it can. And the reason why it can is because as we're learning, not only is it good at communicating with people in their own language where they're at, meaning it could literally speak, let's say, 50 different languages right out of the box. And then in addition to that, you could train it to speak at a comprehension level that is familiar and comfortable for the person that is talking with it. So that's an extremely huge thing, which it naturally can do.
Not to mention translate.
Yeah, the translation is amazing, yeah. And just immediate. So for it to be able to do that, plus when you train it on reliable sources of information and data, like legal aid or like state courts, they have all this great help, self-help information. You train it on that information. It could provide extremely good guidance, next steps. You could even walk them through, as we've done with Tennessee Alliance for Legal Services and the Tennessee Supreme Court, walk them through questions to actually generate the forms that you normally just download and you have to figure it out. It could walk you through completing that for you and even take electronic signatures. And there's other, projects out there that have done similar things. So what it does is it opens the doors of making all of that just as accessible as having a simple conversation with someone. But I think beyond that, one of the statistics, obviously, that we hear every year is that most people don't even realize it's a legal problem. Mm-hmm. And I think by having that approachable conversation, an AI in the background, generative AI can identify these different categories of legal issues and say, hey, by the way, here's some guidance or suggestions I have, but did you realize that these couple of things might be legal issues? And here's how you might think, more deeply about that. And here's some resources where you can get help for that. So I think it's a huge promise. We've been stuck with the one-to-one legal representation model. This opens up one-to-many. And I think that's a boon for lawyers. They shouldn't be worried about that, because just imagine if you can identify all of these issues and potential legal cases that you didn't even know existed before for 92% of, the population, that's going to lead to more business.
Yeah. I mean, we've talked about, kind of chat bots for any number of years in legal and in legal services. But this really takes it to a whole other level. I mean, as you say, it really, it can create conversations that feel so natural, that are more empathetic and understanding to people engaging in them, to the point where probably one of the greatest dangers is people using, an AI generated chat interface and losing track of the fact they're talking to AI. I mean, I guess probably one of the biggest concerns here, right?
Yeah, I think sometimes with lawyers, it leads to a little bit of a defensive posture, right? Like, well, it's just a chat bot. It doesn't, it could potentially get things wrong and all that. But a couple things. Number one, doors left the barn. ChatGPT is out there. Claude is out there every single day answering questions like this. What I think lawyers should do, and some of them are starting to, and I certainly have been working on this for years, but to get ahead of it, use it to your advantage, train it in information that is reliable and accurate, and give people another, better solution. Do that. Don't fight the tide. Swim with it. Get further along by swimming with it and helping more people. That's the number one thing. One of the things that I know as part of the, taking the oath when I got sworn in, this is a noble profession, an honorable one, where we're here not only to make money and have a business, but also to benefit society and help people.
Yeah, this may be putting you on the spot a little bit because I didn't warn you I was going to ask this question. But either in your work, in your work with customers through LawDroid or in your consulting with law firms and legal organizations, are there specific examples that you can point to of generative AI making a real difference, either for a law practice or for the clients of that law practice?
Making a big difference, certainly. One of my clients is a international legal insurance company. And I'm really grateful to them. They've been a supporter for many years now. What's the problem? The problem is in the United States, they have a network of over 15,000 lawyers that they need to communicate with daily about lots of different issues that come up again and again. Up until the point of us working together, all of that was manual. They had to have, throw staff at the problem, and using chatbots, using AI agents to understand what they're asking for, give them answers, and also point them in the right direction, and even give them the information they need and solve the problem, has saved them innumerable hours and additional staff that they would have had to solve that issue. But what they're able to actually use that same, the same staff for internally is for stuff that's much more high level, that's much more valuable, both for their insurance company as well as the attorneys they work with. And with legal aid, the story's been very similar. They couldn't physically interact with all of the people that they would want to, right? And so this makes that possible.
Yeah, that's great. I wanted to talk a little bit about the American Legal Technology Awards, which is going to be in fifth year this year. What is it? I've lost track of how many years now.
6 year. It's going to be the
6 years. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's start by just talking about what is the American Legal Technology Awards, and then let's talk about what's happening this year with it.
Yeah. So, okay. The American Legal Technology Awards is coming out this year on Wednesday, October 15th, the day before CleoCon in the same city, Boston. And it's going to be hosted at Suffolk Law School, where I'm an adjunct professor. It's just so exciting. It's going to be a lot of fun. Every year we recognize those that are really trying to do, exceptional work, but also good in the world. And it's always a fun time and bringing our community together.
Yeah. For people who have never heard of this before, what are the awards? What kinds of things do they honor and recognize?
Well, first, I'm really thankful to my co-founders, Kat Moon, who's professor at Vanderbilt Law School, and Patrick Pallas, who runs personal injury and workers' compensation practice in Tacoma, Washington. Together, we put on these awards to recognize people that are contributing for journalism, for startups. We have a Lifetime Achievement Award. We also recognize people that are making a difference in access to justice, in the court system, in education. And, every year, the number of nominations we get, it grows, and the caliber of people is just completely amazing. Just, we're just so honored to be able to put this on and to get everyone together. And it didn't start with any intention really other than getting our friends together, recognizing the good work we're doing. Some people hear that and might think, oh, we're just a bunch of do-gooders, but I think that's a good thing. We're trying to do good in the world.
Then came the pandemic.
Well, we actually started at the beginning of the pandemic. You're right.
Yeah, you were going to have am I misremembering that? You were going to have an awards thing, and then the pandemic came, and you weren't able to have the dinner the first year, right?
You're right. It was the first 2 years.
We're online.
It was totally online.
Yeah.
And actually, I've replicated that model because I think if you do 2 years virtual and you get legs underneath it, then you have something to bring it in person the third year, and that worked really well for the awards.
Well, for anybody listening to this who's also going to be a Clio or in the Boston area around that time, it's a fun evening and it's a great night. And if only to see what Patrick Pallas wears, if for no other reason, who's got some flamboyant outfits up his sleeve. So when do nominations open, and what's the timing around all of that?
So the doors for nominations are now open. I want to thank you too for being a media partner across the years for the event.
Yeah. I want to thank you for getting an award across the event.
And it not only has to be somebody nominating you, it could be self-nominations. We're wide open to that. There's no fee whatsoever to get nominated. The only thing that we charge for that we need to is when people come to the dinner, because obviously there's a lot that goes into that. But all the rest of it is just open for anyone to apply.
All right. Not to jump around a lot, but I did want to also turn to, you alluded to the fact already that you are now teaching at Suffolk Law School in Boston. Suffice to say, I'm a big fan of Suffolk and everything they do there. And you and I, as you said, were both at their LitCon conference just a week ago, which one of the things they do at that conference, part of it is to highlight the work done by students in their lit lab. Legal Innovation Technology, is that what LIT stands for?
Yep.
And some really impactful projects being done to help access to justice, to help courts in really interesting ways. So it was a lot of fun. It's always fun to see what the students are doing there. So over the past, year or so, you've now gotten involved with Suffolk teaching a course there. So talk about what you're doing there.
Yeah, it's been amazing, like getting to join a cast of characters that's kind of like the legal tech Avengers. Mark Lauritsen, he got recognized at that conference for his great work over the years.
I've known Mark forever.
Yeah. Got invited to the position by Diane O'Leary, who's running their program there, Gabe Tannenbaum, David Colarusso, Quentin Steenhouse, even Sam Glover is there now,
Yeah.
And so I've been teaching generative AI and the delivery of legal services. Diane, she kind of kicked it off, and I taught this past semester. She's teaching next semester, and then I'm coming back in the spring to teach it. It's now part of their LLM in LIT, the Legal Innovation Technology Program. And, it's been recognized by Bloomberg as a predominant, legal innovation law school.
Mm-hmm.
And I've learned so much from my students because they have such a different, I talk about mindset a lot and frame of mind, they have a completely different mindset than we do. So hearing their feedback and also some of their enthusiasm is infectious. Yeah, I mean, they've been wonderful. And as you saw some of their presentations, they've been doing great things themselves.
Yeah. So what's the structure of your course? I mean, what are you teaching? Is it a hands-on kind of a course? What does it look like?
So I paused like that dramatic pause because I had no idea what I was doing at the beginning.
I was going to ask you that.
Yeah. Like most things in my career, I just kind of jump into them and then figure them out as I'm doing them. With LawDroid, with teaching. And so I had to construct an entire 13-week course. And so I actually ended up writing a textbook as I was going.
Of course. Why not?
Why not? So like every week, my students were like my responsibility partners, where they're holding me accountable for writing the chapter because they have to read it. And then I would write a workbook exercise related to each chapter. So you have like a like the background about generative AI, the history, ethics, real world use cases and examples, access to justice. Cherie Gilchrist was one of my guests that came to talk. I had Troy Doucette from AI.law come and talk about, the vendor side of things. It was just this amazing experience. I also built in, podcasts that were created by Notebook LM for the students to listen to have a different way into the material. Mm-hmm. I also recorded mini lectures for every single class. And then I created, of course, a chatbot tutor that was trained on all of the different chapters and then could actually tutor the students through the concepts. Yeah, so I put that all together and now have a textbook that I've completed.
That's great. What are you going to do with the textbook?
Well, right now it's online. I'm looking to shop it around, possibly to get it in print, but we'll see how that goes.
Yeah. Is there a focus on the practical or on careers here? Are you talking to students about how they can use this technology when they get out of law school?
It's a really great point. And I did talk about that throughout, but in particular, and it's funny that the timing of this, because Today is the last capstone project presentation and the last day that I get to talk to my students. And the reason why I mention that is because the capstone project that I assigned to them at the beginning of the semester is for them to put together an AI implementation plan for a law firm. And so I wanted them not just to learn these things kind of in the abstract and play around with chatbots and ChatGPT and play around with Claude and all those good tools, but to also like bring it together, put it together in a way that they have something they take away from the course into practice where they can actually have and share with, their boss, hey, there's this AI implementation plan. It kind of maps out how we could do this if you want to, and really give them something they could take into the world.
Yeah. As we've been going through all these different things you do, we didn't even mention the fact that you also just staged a AI and legal conference, day-long virtual conference that I was also got to be a panelist on, talking about some of the media coverage of AI and legal, which was a lot of fun. But I'm curious, what's next? What else do you have on the back burner or the front burner in terms of stuff you're working on right now?
Yeah, I like to do stuff. I like to bring people together. Yeah. It's something that I found that I could do well, and I really enjoy doing it. So there's other things that I got cooking. One thing I can mention is that I am working on that book that just goes into the idea of implementing AI within law firms and organizations. And I'm really excited to get that one out in the world when it comes about. But I think you'll just see that there'll be other events where I bring people together, and hopefully we all learn something, enjoy each other's company, and go out in the world and do good.
One of the most frequent comments I heard about your AI conference was how good the musical interludes were between programs. And knowing you, I know that you've always had a strong interest in music, and I think it's fair to say sort of punk music in particular, right? Are you a musician, or where did that come from? Is that just a natural evolution?
It's just a natural inclination of mine, like leaning towards punk and a little goth from growing up in the mid '80s. But and I know you're a fan of the Clash. It's not only music, but again, it's also like a frame of mind. It's a frame of mind of like not taking things for granted, being curious, being a little rebellious, some good trouble we can get ourselves into. But yeah, that, it's great that people like that and that connected with that. And It's definitely a theme I keep throughout the events.
Rebelliousness is a good thing. Did I already tell you my Clash story? I probably told you my Clash story, but I did have a client many, many years ago who was the mother of a roadie for the Clash. And so I used to get little bits of Clash gear here and there from via my client. So that was as close as I actually got to knowing anybody there. But yes, I was a big fan.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. That was back when I practiced in the Virgin Islands, which was a long time ago.
Yeah, that must have been beautiful.
Yeah, it's nice. All right. Well, I really appreciate your coming on and talking a little bit. It's been great to chat with you.
Same here, Bob. It's always a pleasure. Thank you.
All right. We will see you where next? I don't know. Maybe not till Boston in October in Clio, but hope to see you around somewhere.
Will for sure.
All right. Thanks a lot, Tom. Thanks for joining us for today's show. I hope you enjoyed it. If you'd like to share your own thoughts or comments, please do so by messaging us on LinkedIn or other social media, or by emailing me directly, ambrogi@gmail.com. And if you're a fan of LawNext, please leave us a review. LawNext is a production of LawNext Media. I'm your host, Bob Ambrogi. I hope you'll join us again next time for another episode of LawNext.